Meet Shiraishi, a high school boy who is so invisible that people call him the lucky charm. Why? Because if you spot him, you'll have a good day. He's like a rare Pokemon, but less cute and more boring. He's given up on having a normal teenage life and spends his time reading manga novels about exciting adventures. But his life is about to change when he meets Kubo, a popular girl who has a knack for finding him. Kubo is not like the other students who ignore Shiraishi or make fun of him. She's genuinely interested in him and wants to help him out of his shell. She's smart, friendly, and a bit mischievous. She challenges him to do things that will make him more noticeable, like standing on his desk in class. She says it's an easy task, since no one will pay attention to him anyway. But she's wrong. Shiraishi reluctantly agrees to her challenge, hoping to impress her and maybe get some luck for himself. He climbs on his desk and waits for the reaction. But to his horror, his teacher notices him right away and scolds him in front of everyone. The class bursts into laughter and Shiraishi wishes he could disappear for real. He feels humiliated and angry at Kubo for putting him in this situation. But Kubo thinks it's hilarious and tells him he did great. Shiraishi is still recovering from his desk-standing fiasco when Kubo tells him he was the star of the show. He calls her a villain for making him do that, but she says he should call her a heroine instead. Kubo's friend tells her she saw Shiraishi twice that day, which means she's super lucky. There's even a rumor that a student hasn't seen Shiraishi in a whole year. Kubo says she can always find him, no problem. She has a special radar for him. The next day, Kubo confronts Shiraishi with a sour face. He tries to appease her with some milk, but she says he ignored her greeting that morning in front of her friends. She decides to punish him by sitting on his lap and seeing if anyone notices. Shiraishi freaks out and feels his mind go blank. Kubo pinches his cheeks and says he's cute and funny, and that she forgives him now. Shiraishi escapes and sits on the floor outside the classroom. He wonders why Kubo is playing with him like this. Is she just having fun at his expense? Kubo overhears him and says she can't tell him her reasons yet. She reminds him that he said he never gets called on in class and asks how he would feel if he did. She raises her hand when the teacher asks a question, but then passes it to Shiraishi. He panics and doesn't know the answer, but Kubo secretly shows him her paper and he manages to say it right. Kubo wants to exchange phone numbers with Shiraishi, but he runs away when he sees her friends coming. He thinks he's safe, but he bumps into her at the park later. She tells him he's so hard to see that even her phone can't recognize his face when she tries to take a photo of him. She decides to experiment with how close they have to be for the camera to work. She takes a selfie with him, practically hugging him. Shiraishi feels his heart race and his face heat up. Kubo looks at the photo and blushes too. She says they should hang out more and asks for his number. Shiraishi is at home, staring at the selfie they took. He thinks Kubo was just being polite when she said she wanted to hang out with him. But then he gets a text from her, inviting him to do something. He realizes she's serious and replies yes. Kubo is in the bathroom with her phone, smiling like an idiot. Her sister Akina sees her and wonders what's going on. Kubo is happy because Shiraishi agreed to hang out with her. The next day, Shiraishi is in class, thinking about taking a nap. He figures no one will notice him anyway, except for Kubo. But he looks at her and sees that she's already asleep. He wonders how she can be so relaxed in class. Later, he joins a long-distance run and notices that his partner can't keep track of him. He feels like a ghost on the track. When he goes back to class, he sees Kubo walking towards him. He tries to stay away from her. Kubo gets close to Shiraishi and he tells her he's sweaty and smelly from the run. Kubo doesn't care and sniffs his clothes. She says he smells fine, but Shiraishi is grossed out. She gives him some wet tissues with a nice scent to wipe himself. He does, and Kubo says they smell the same now. The next day, Shiraishi goes to the bookstore to buy the latest volume of his favorite manga. He runs into Kubo there and she asks him about his manga preferences. She wants to read his favorite manga too, but the first volume is sold out. Shiraishi finds out that they live near each other and offers to lend her the first 3 volumes. Kubo is happy and asks him why they never see each other on their way to school. He says he leaves early to avoid the crowd. Kubo decides to wake up early too and join him on his walk. They have a nice time until they meet Kubo's friends. Shiraishi feels good that Kubo walked with him, but he knows it doesn't change anything. He's still invisible to most people and he goes through his day as usual. But on his way home, he notices that even the pedestrians don't see him. He doesn't mind, but he gets soaked by a car that splashes water from a puddle on him. Shiraishi is soaked and dirty after the puddle splash. He walks home with Kubo, but when they reach his house, he finds out he has no keys. His mom texts him that she won't be back for 2 hours. Shiraishi decides to shower on the lawn with a hose. Kubo thinks he's crazy. She invites him to her house instead. She says no one is there, so it's fine. She doesn't realize she's setting up a romantic situation. They get to her house and she shows him the bathroom. She blushes when he sees her sacred clothing in a bucket. He pretends not to notice and goes to shower. Kubo is so nice that she washes his clothes for him. Shiraishi is touched by her kindness. The next day, they meet on the stairs at school. Shiraishi gives back the tracksuit she lent him. She asks if it was too small. He says yes and tells her his height, 5 feet 4. She says she's 5 feet 3 and steps up to compare. She says the perfect height difference for a couple is 6 inches. She pats his head and says it doesn't matter to her. Then she steps down and says she likes their height difference better. But then she quickly says she's kidding. Shiraishi has a secret plan after school. He tells Kubo he can't hang out with her. She is curious about what he's up to. A woman sees a kid playing by himself in the snow. She goes to check on him. She asks him where his parents are. Shiraishi shows up and says he's the kid's brother. The woman apologizes for thinking the kid was alone. Shiraishi sits down and worries that people think his brother Sita is lonely. Kubo comes to the park and sees Shiraishi's plan. He brought his brother to play. He asks Sita to say hi to Kubo. She is amazed by how cute he is. Sita sees Kubo's drink and wants some. Kubo gives him the drink. He sips it and then tells Kubo to sip it too. Then he tells Shiraishi to sip it as well. He doesn't want to, but Kubo says he should do it for Sita. He fakes a sip. Kubo wonders if he avoided an indirect kiss. Shiraishi is at home reading manga. He wants to get a poster that comes with a magazine. The magazine has a hot model on the cover. He is shy to buy it and afraid that someone will see him with it and think he's a freak. He grabs the magazine, but he also grabs another one by mistake. It's a naughty magazine. Shiraishi thinks no one can see him. He decides to peek at the naughty magazine for science. But then a clerk comes up to him. She tells him he should look at something more age-appropriate. He tries to explain, but she doesn't believe him. She says he was just curious. He is shocked that someone noticed him. He sees her name tag and it says Kubo. He thinks it's a weird coincidence. He buys the poster magazine and leaves. He vows never to go back to that store. Akina finds Shiraishi's student card on the ground. She sees he goes to the same school as her sister Nagisa. She goes home and tells her sister to give the card back to him. She also says she saw him with a dirty magazine. This breaks Nagisa's heart a little and makes her worry. Kubo has Shiraishi's student card and wants to give it back to him, but she makes him sweat a little. She tells him her sister found it at the store. He feels bad and shy when she asks him if he likes thick women. He wants to explain what happened at the store, but she gives him the card and runs away. She is so embarrassed by her question. Akina asks Nagisa if she has plans for Christmas. Shiraishi is in class and thinks about how invisible he is. Teachers forget about him and he has to remind them he exists. Kubo pokes him and says the teacher wants to see him. She also says he promised to hang out with her. They agree to meet on Saturday. He doesn't know it's Christmas. He is very nervous and comes early on Saturday. He hates crowds because people can't see him. He almost gets sat on by a stranger. He dodges in time. Kubo shows up and holds his hand. She feels how cold they are and asks how long he waited. He lies and says 1 minute, but she doesn't buy it. She keeps holding his hand until he tells the truth. Kubo gives Shiraishi a bag with his present. She says he should get her something too. He says he'll be back in 15 minutes. He runs to the mall and looks for a gift. He doesn't know what she likes. He also worries about her hands getting cold. Kubo waits for him and wonders where he is. Shiraishi comes back and says sorry. He gives her a pair of gloves. He says he cared about her hands and he couldn't pick a color. Kubo loves the gloves and thinks he's sweet. She puts them on and shows him her present, a yellow t-shirt with the word main character on it. He says he loves it and he's happy to get anything. Shiraishi sees his brother watching TV and trying to do a superhero move. His mom says he used to do that too. She tells him to take his brother to the park. At the park, Sita keeps trying the move. Shiraishi sees no one else around and decides to show his brother how it's done. His brother is amazed and thinks Shiraishi is awesome. He asks him to do it again. Kubo is hiding and filming them. Shiraishi sees her when she plays the video. He is so embarrassed, but she tells them to keep going. She wants more footage. Shiraishi wears mismatched socks to school. He was too sleepy to notice. He had gym class, but no one saw his socks. Kubo and her friends come to the classroom. They talk about Valentine's Day. Shiraishi looks at Kubo and thinks something is different. He stares at her. She sees him and asks what he's looking at. He can't answer and ends the conversation. He keeps staring at her in class. He can't figure out what's different. The teacher asks Kubo to put some papers on the wall. Shiraishi is glad no one saw his socks, but then Kubo asks him to help her. She can't reach the wall because she's short. He can't reach it either because he's also short. He worries about her seeing his socks. He gets a chair to stand on. She asks him if he's shy and then says his socks are different. He is shocked that she saw them. She gets on the chair and fixes the papers. He watches her and realizes she's wearing tights. He says it out loud by mistake. She is surprised he noticed. She says her socks were wet so she wore tights today. She jokes that he was checking her out and calls him a naughty boy. He makes it worse by saying he wasn't looking at her legs, but at her all day. Kubo says she knows he was staring at her all day. They finish their task and she asks him to go to the store with her. She wants to try the coffee there. She can't decide what to get and asks him if they should get different drinks and share. He thinks she's teasing him and says he only wants a meat bun. She tells him to come with her to the counter. She says he's invisible, so he can protect her like a hidden angel. She has trouble ordering the drink and asks for his help. He helps her and she's happy. She says no one saw him. They walk home and Shiraishi sees how much Kubo enjoys the coffee. She offers him a sip, but he says no. He has his meat bun. He thinks he dodged her trick, but she bites his meat bun. She tells him to eat it while it's hot. He walks home and thinks about eating the bun. But then two women bump into him and make him drop the bun. They wonder if they hit something or if they imagined it. Shiraishi is alone on Valentine's Day. He sees everyone giving gifts to each other. He remembers how he never got any candy as a kid. The teachers always forgot him. He puts his hands on his desk and feels something. He sees a bag of candy. He wonders who left it there. He thinks no one would give him candy. He hopes it was Kubo, but then he hits his head on the desk to stop thinking that. Kubo sees him and asks if he's okay. He tries to ask her if she gave him the candy, but he chickens out and asks about the weather. Kubo says it's Valentine's Day and asks if he ever got chocolate from anyone. He says nope. The last number of your like is who powers you get. Comment who you got. Don't forget to subscribe for more anime recaps.